Hello knife nuts. This is going to be my first video on YouTube, so we will see how this goes. I wanted to start off by reviewing one of my favorite knives. Now I know that there's a few out there, and I recommend going to check those out because I feel that they would probably be much more informative than this is about to be, but I figured I'd give my thoughts and opinions. This is actually the third Grayman Dua, which is what this knife is, and which is what you'll see from the title as well. The first one I bought, carried for a while, and ended up actually trading for another knife, and I immediately regretted it. I missed it being in my pocket. Nothing else just seemed to fill that void in my collection. So I ended up trading for another one. I actually believe I traded the knife that I got for it for another Dua. Now what happened to this one wasn't me selling it or trading it. It was actually Christmas Eve, and someone smashed my buddy's car window and stole my bag that had my knife in it, along with my siblings' Christmas presents, which was very nice Christmas Eve. Anyway, after a while, one came up for sale, and I actually traded a small Sebenzas for it, just because it just wasn't the right size for me. Not to say that there's anything wrong with Sebenzas, but that might not actually be a bad place to start with this. Now, for anyone that hasn't had a Grayman knife before, the Grayman pivot works the exact same way as the Sebenzas pivot does, which means that there is a bushing in the pivot. That means that no matter how tight you fasten this, it is still going to drop smoothly, and it will always open the same, and it will always be dead center. Now, I have had a good few knives at this point, and of course, like a lot of us, I started off with the Tenacious and the Persistence and the Hinderers, and then graduated into the titanium frame locks, and started to like knives with a thicker stock. And actually, one of my all-time favorite knives is a Spyderco Techno. However, the guy that I got to sharpen it ended up ruining it quite well. So I'm probably actually going to end up having to get another one of those. Anyway, let's get back to the Dua here. So we have titanium scales, which were EDM wire cut. The lock bar has surprisingly easy tension to, so when I say that, I mean when you press on it, there's nothing hard about it. There's no lock stick or anything like that. Now I do find sometimes that if I open it slowly, there is a little bit. However, it is absolutely negligible. We have titanium pocket clip. The hardware is only accessible from the one side. Smooth on this side. We have a very, very thick stop pin, and it opens via thumb stud, and it has phosphor bronze washers, which I've had knives on KVT bearings, KVT ball bearings, and they're great, but I am a huge fan of the phosphor bronze washers. They're just great. It comes in this uniform stone wash. It's exactly the same throughout the whole knife. And on the blade, you can see Grayman USA CPM 20CV. And it is pretty much sterile on the other side here, or sterile, as some say. This knife, the blade is 3 1/4 inches, and it is 1¼ inches wide. The handle, I believe, is 4. Don't quote me on that one though. And it is from what I remember, it is a 7.5-inch overall length. So for me, living in Canada, it is technically just over the legal limit in terms of blade length, but as long as you're not an idiot, you should be fine. It carries great in the pocket. There is a little bit, obviously, that pops out. I don't mind that. Now, some of you guys that prefer deep carry, I haven't seen any options for that. And of course, it comes with this lanyard hole, and having that extra room makes actually having a lanyard on it more useful. For those of you that have the Techno, you'll know that if you put a lanyard in it and you try and carry it in your pocket, the lanyard just kind of ends up, hanging out at this weird angle. All right, the 20 CV blade steel. This was actually my first experience with it. I am a huge fan of CTS XHP. That's been one of my all-time favorite steels, and I do find that this acts very similar in terms of edge retention. I have stropped this maybe a handful of times, and I've had this knife for over a year now. It holds an edge. It can, and I use it almost every day. Now, it's not always for, arduous tasks of, breaking down cardboard and stuff like that, but use it at work, to kind of open boxes or random, things that, if my niece gets a new toy, I'll open that up, but I will use it for, breaking down cardboard or cutting down branches or whatever if I happen to be out in the woods or anything like that. Let's talk about some of the stuff that I would perhaps change about the knife. Now, when it's closed, I actually very much like the look. It's very modern. It's very utilitarian. It's not a pretty knife, but it's not an ugly knife either. However, when it's open, a part of me would like this part just up here to have a little bit more shape to it, I guess, whether it came in a bit, slightly Bowie-like, and I'd kind of like it to have a little bit more streamlined instead of it's got a very spear-like shape to it. Not that I have an issue with that, but I think it could be something that aesthetically would be more pleasing. There could be a little bit more lip here in terms of being able to push the lock bar over. However, you know what? After using it for quite a while, I have had zero issues with that. Oh, there we go. Obvious that it's my first video, hey? Now in here you can see that there's still the heat treat wasn't polished out in the jimping. Initially, I didn't like this. I was kind of like, it's kind of unfinished. And after time, I was kind of like, you know what? It's kind of a part of the character of it. They might, I want to say Mike and Sue. I believe that's correct. The mom and pop owners of Grayman knives. They built these to go overseas. These are for soldiers. Now, probably not the Dua. However, the Sawtooth, most certainly the Sawtooth is the big brother to the Dua, and I mean big. It's a big knife. But that's what it's meant for. It is a hard use folder. And you can see that from the thick blade stock, from the choice in materials, to the frame lock, which some people may say is not the best lock, but it is a very highly used lock, and honestly, the lockup on this has not moved at all since I've gotten it. Now, in terms of size, I wish I'd actually brought out my Techno, and I've also got a Benchmade Griptilian that I should have brought out as well, just to give you a bit of size comparison. All I had with me at the moment was my Spyderco Roadie, which is also it's kind of my sub EDC. So if any of you guys happen to have this will give you a bit of an idea. Anyway, I figured that I would give this a shot. If anyone happens to actually watch this video, if anyone has any input in terms of my setup here, or just really anything, feel free to let me know down in the comments. At this point, I could care less about likes or subscriptions or anything like that. Some feedback would just be absolutely great. Anyway, all my fellow knife nuts, hope you guys all had a great day, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.